Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Greet the Week. I am Mona Duncan, and along with Jan Moray and others that are joining us. Today we're going to be discussing being positive, being negative. Is it just an automatic thing? Does it depend on how you look at it? Jan, what were you thinking of whenever you put this as our topic for today?
Well, as I mentioned to Mona just a few minutes ago, my son got married yesterday.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So that was a big event for me. And he had asked me to give the toast for him. His bride had her sisters give a toast, and he asked me. And so I was trying to put together all the things that I could talk about. And some of the negative things that came in of him growing up kind of crept in there. And I said, no, we're going to stay positive. We're going to stay upbeat. And it's just kind of interesting that a lot of times it's the negative things or how you look at things. You can see things one way, or you can change your perspective and look at them totally differently. And so I just thought we talk about that today. And so I was able to put my little toast together and keeping everything positive and looking on the positive side. But it also reminded me of one of my cousins. Her daughter got married, and her husband talked about the bride when she was a little girl and how much trouble she was. And my sister and I are sitting there, no, not at her wedding. You don't do this. You don't talk about this stuff here. It's time to be positive. So how do we find the positive things that happen and to focus on that, or to look at the negative things and say, okay, maybe there's a glimmer of something that I can learn from here, or something that's positive here, and how do we change the way we think and how we act.
Right. Well, talking about children and so forth, I'm going to share a little with my own daughter. She was a child. Anyway, in later years, she told me one time, she said, well, I would be sharing things, something that my grandchildren would do, and I would share something with what she did and what the outcome was and so forth. And she said, Mom, she said, I always got the impression that I was just the perfect little child. Said,
oh.
And I said, well, you were, but you also were a royal toot. It's just that, and again, it's kind of like what you're saying, it's the focus that you put on it. This is immaturity, and I'm to be the parent and to be the role model, and so we can always work through these things.
Right.
But in looking at seeing the positive or the negative, I was kind of thinking of that great philosopher, Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs, and a song that he had about that's good, no, that's bad. And if I can remembering it correctly, this person had been hit by a car walking the street, and walking across the street, they were hit by a car. And the person listening says, oh, that's bad. And he said, well, no, it was good. Said the insurance paid, and I had more money than I'd ever had before. And the person said, oh, well, that's good. And he said, well, no, it was bad. He said, most of it went to the doctors. I said, oh, that's bad. He said, yeah, but I had a really good doctor, and we did this, and this happened, and something else. And he said, but unfortunately, I was left with a limp. And he said, oh, well, that's bad. And I said, no, it wasn't bad, because my natural limp, I was given the lead in a Western, because I was the sheriff with a limp. I said, oh, that's good. And when they banter back and forth about that's good, that's bad, no, that's good. And the thing of it is that life is a mixture of both and. It's the positives, the negatives, it's the good, it's the bad, it's all of that. And it depends on what we focus on. And we can begin to look and see how that negative situations can be turned into positive, and positive can be seen as being more negative, depending on how we look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
to mind for me is one time I was talking with a friend of mine. We were talking about our sons. Actually, that was my son that got married we were talking about. And he was saying, well, my son never calls me, and he doesn't answer my phone calls. And He doesn't want me to look at his stuff on Facebook and stuff. And he said, I just don't know what's wrong with my son. We just don't have a very good relationship. And I said, that sounds a lot like my relationship with my son. We hardly ever talk on the phone, and he doesn't return my phone calls, and he blocked me on Facebook. I said, but I don't look at us as having a negative relationship. I just know that that's who he is, and that's just the kind of, he's very private, and he didn't want me. We didn't talk on the phone much anyway. But if I, every once in a while, I wouldn't hear from him, and I'd say, Michael, can you please respond back and let me know that you're still alive? And he would, and he just text back, yep, still here. And then but I knew that was him, and the fact that he returned the phone call or returned my text quickly, I knew that I was still important in his life. Whereas my friend who was talking about his son, how he, had a horrible relationship, I said, well, what are you doing to make the relationship better? Because he was kind of backing off and letting his son have space. And I said, oh, no, I'm still in his life. I still call him. Whether he returns the phone calls or not, I still call. And so there's a lot you can do to look at the situation, and also to say, to find, okay, what positive thing is he doing? Because there has to be some things that are positive too. It's not just the negative. And what I mean, that's just the way he was, and to accept him for that.
That acceptance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is that, whenever someone's complaining to me about someone not calling or all that, I say, well, it is a two-way street.
Right, absolutely.
You could always give them a buzz. It doesn't have to be a deep conversation. It's just, I'm thinking of you. I care about you.
Right,
and,
right.
Keep that communication going and keeping it open. And then also the tone of voice in which we contact them, of beginning to wonder about it, not in an accusing term.
Right.
But
in information and not blaming or accusing them for not.
Exactly. Just looking for, giving you information and receiving some information from you, or just want to hear your voice.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So taking the positive, and well, this could become, it's not as big a deal as it may seem like. And if we could always just kind of ask ourselves, well, what if I could see it in a different light?
Yeah.
What if I could see it from a different point of view?
Because when you start thinking about it in a negative point of view, then everything they do, you're going to use that as evidence that he doesn't want a relationship with you. He doesn't want to be around you. And instead of, and that just brings everybody down. So to believe that, okay, he's my son, and it's important for me to have a relationship with him, so I'm going to do all I can to keep that relationship positive. And so I'm not going to look at it as something that he did just because he's angry at me, he doesn't want to be with me. That's just what he does to everybody. He's not singling me out.
So don't take it personal.
Correct.
And as we cannot take things so personally, we can handle them, we can handle them lightly, not have them have so much weight to them.
Right.
On that note, I'm going to have to leave this meeting, which I like a lot, but don't take it personally.
Okay.
Okay.
I've got a visitor coming over, and I've got to talk to him. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Next week.
Good to see you, Jerry. Thanks.
And then also in looking at things in a negative light, how are we adding weight to it? What's my reasoning behind it? That they're not calling? What is my reasoning behind the difficulty? Why am I seeing it? So yes, it's going to, there may be cost to it. There may be stepping out of your comfort zone. But if we don't make them so honest, then they aren't. If we see things as being doable as opposed to not doable. And then it's also,
like you said, it is a two-way street. Both people have to make the effort. But then you can also think too, like I knew, for example, with my son, he really never liked to talk on the phone. And so there are other ways to communicate with your family besides calling them.
Right, right.
Texting is a big thing now, and that's how all the kids communicate. Well, that's my main mode of communication now too, because it's easy, it's quick, and you don't have to worry about catching them at a bad time. You just text the message over, and then you can have a conversation. That, of course, that's not good for long conversations.
Right. They can break the ice if there has been a little bit of a damage there. And then, of course, there's that old snail mail that really gets you.
Correct.
I mean, it must really be something special if I would mail it to me.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. My little granddaughter, yesterday was her dance recital. She's 13. And that she was sick and unable to go. And it was working all they could, went to different doctors and, doing what they could to get her to feel well enough to be able to go and everything. So anyway, I called her and talked to her, and I said, well, we're real disappointed, but never in you.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes we can be disappointed in something, but it's not in the person, it's never in you. We're just disappointed, and, everyone there will be disappointed too when they realize that it's a really good little program. So do you have more thoughts on how to?
Well, I think it's to learn to catch yourself when you're focusing on the negative, and especially when dealing with family members and people that you love. When you're around them so much, it's so easy to see the flaws and to see the things that aren't going well, and to try to catch yourself when you're looking at it negatively, saying, "No, wait a minute, what is something good coming out of this? What positive thing can I find?" And you don't have to be too creative to find something. Like the example you gave at the very beginning about the guy, well, no, that's good. Well, no, that's bad. It really does depend on how you want to look at it. Would you rather look at all the negative parts of it? And, it's kind of interesting too, because my first husband and I are divorced. The father of my son were divorced. And of course he was there with his new wife. And for once, he's always been so angry with me, and I hadn't seen him in 5 years since my daughter graduated from college. And actually, at the end of it, he actually said, "It was good to see you," and I'm like, "Wow,
Wow,
wow," because he was one of those who was very, very negative. And I don't know if that's something that comes with old age or just letting time pass by, that things like that change. But it really does change your whole outlook, because if you're looking at the negative in a situation, it just brings your mood way down.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I mean, I just a few years ago started making a real effort to be super positive and super upbeat. I mean, I walk every morning, and every time I see somebody else walking or some worker working in somebody's yard, I say hello to them. I don't care if I've seen them before or never. And just going around and saying hello to them boosts my spirit up. Whether it does anything for them, I don't know. I think it does, because a lot of them kind of recognize me now and say it back. But, or you're checking out at the grocery store and just say, "So how's your day going?" and having little conversation, but in an upbeat message. It just puts you in a good mood, and those are the kinds of things that you can do that help you to stay positive and to be looking for the positive things. Because once you start doing that, the negative stuff, you really just don't like it. It's just not comfortable. I don't want to focus on this. Okay, yes, this isn't going the way I want it to, but how can I change it so it does?
And even if it is negative, even if it is heavy, as we lift those heavy weights, it develops our muscle.
Right.
And it develops our strength. So we can put a slant to it that is character building.
Yeah.
Character, that this is a person. I was reading this book by Walter Wink, The Powers That Be. And he is looking at the fact that the powers that be, the systems, and the powers that be, everything is comprised of, they're all good.
Mhm.
They are all necessary. They are all have error to it, and they're all redeemable.
Yes.
And that no matter what it is, something can be scrapped out of it. Even with all the trash that we have and all the pollution that it had, there can be ways that it can be turned into something that can be redeemable.
Mhm.
That can put it over some sand. Who would think going over sand would purify it? But it does. Taking the negative out. And as we've looked before many times, bringing up the fact that what is the cure for a snake bite? Well, it's venom.
Yeah.
It's the venom that becomes the cure.
hurt you in the first place.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And the fact that in order to give is to receive. If we didn't have something to give, and the more we give what we want to receive, the more we will receive what we give. Because life is about that reciprocity. We get back whatever it is we plant, whether it is whether that's a thought or whether that is an action.
Yeah.
We're going to reap whatever it is we sow, whether it is additional discord or whether it is unifying efforts.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, you think about the person in your life. We've all had these people in our lives who it seems like there's nothing right you can do. You just hear about all the things you do wrong. And so how do you feel about that person? Do you actually want to be around them and spend time with them? And so you go, well, I don't want to be like that person. I want people to want to come see me, to be with me, and to do things with me. And so I want to make it pleasant to be around.
Right, right. And it may be a deal, but it's not that big a deal.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then too, asking yourself, it is a deal, not discounting it. It's not to look at things that are negative and say, well, I'm so positive that it's just going to erase it and we don't do anything about it. No, that's putting your blinders on and not seeing life. It is realizing that in the middle of everything, there is lessons to be learned.
Mm-hmm.
And there are characters to be built, yours including the other person's also, or the other people's. And so it is being aware of. And once we become aware of it, it's not to condemn yourself. Oh no, I'm going to the oh no's, rather than beating yourself up for that. Just be aware of it. Just be aware. And how can I look at it that might be a little bit different? That might not be quite as heavy as I am allowing my spirit to sense.
Yeah. Or is there something I can say or do to make the situation a little bit better?
Exactly.
There are always things that you can do. You can't expect everybody else out there to, first of all, to know what you like and what you don't like, and then how to make it better for you.
Yeah.
One other example at the reception, my husband and I are vegan, and then my daughter's boyfriend, he's lactose intolerant, so he's essentially eats vegan type food, and so the three of us were sitting together, and of course everything on the menu was cheeses and meats and all this kind of thing, and so I just, when it came time to me to order, I said, well, I don't want any of the main courses. I just want some of the sides. And so even though there wasn't an option of something for me to eat, because I could have very well said, they know I don't eat this stuff. Why didn't they have an option on the menu? It's like, they had enough to think about for their wedding and putting everything together. And I found a solution myself. I just said, I want the side from this one and the side from this one, and then I'll be good. And then they ended up fixing us a special side and some other things they did for us. But nobody made a scene, and nobody acted like they were put out or upset about anything. It just kind of work things out, and to understand that people have a lot on their mind. They can't remember everything. And sometimes you're the one who gets left out, but I got a mouth, so I can stand up for myself. I can speak up.
There's nothing else. There's someplace on the way home you can stop.
Right.
Just enjoy while you're there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Because the day was a special day, and you don't want to ruin the special day because I'm being inconvenienced. It's not. I mean, that goes back to thinking about, okay, is what I have to say and do right now so important that I'm going to mess this up for everybody else? Because if
Right.
you make
Yeah.
a scene, then other people feel uncomfortable too, even though they have nothing to do with it. They feel uncomfortable. They can't help it.
Right. And judgmental of you as well as others.
Right. Right.
Because that's the way we come to decisions, is by making judgments. But sometimes we can put too much judgment to it based on our own personalities. But seeing that it's all together in the one is everything, and everything is in the one. There's the good and the bad, the not so good. It's all there together, and it's kind of picking and choosing. What is it I'm going to take? Am I going to allow this to ruin my day?
Right. Exactly.
I work with McLennan Community College, and I work with their students over there. And one day I had on a white suit, and I parked at the adjacent parking lot, and I rode their little their little tram over to the lecture. And then when I was going back, and so this lady came in, and so I was there, and I was sitting there, and this girl came in, and she was, I don't know what her day had been, but it was not a good one to her.
Yes.
And she came in, and she had a drink in her hand, and she spilled the drink, and it splashed all over the place, but it also splashed on me.
Oh.
And she was just in tears, and she said, "Oh, great, now I've ruined your day." And I got down on the floor beside her, because she was picking up everything she had dropped. I got down on the floor beside her. I reached underneath someone had discarded a newspaper. I reached underneath the seat to pull out the newspaper, started blotting up the Coke that she had spilled. And I told her, I said, "Honey, I need you to know it takes something a lot more than a little spilled Coke on my dress to ruin my day. And I'm hoping that you can learn to let that happen to you too. It takes something a lot more than this to ruin your day." Now, is it an inconvenience? Yes. So what? So what? Now what? How am I going to handle this? It is what it is. It's a deal. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be a big, that into each life a little rain will fall, but it's not a tsunami every day. And even if it is a tsunami, as long as we can climb on the roof and survive, yay.
Yeah. Well, you think about weddings too, and so many times you want that day to be perfect and everything to go just right, but it doesn't always happen. and so what if something happens, a little something, but to mess it up? Again, you look at the positives. So look at this negative thing that happened. I've got all my family together. They're all here to wish us well. They're here to be together and to see us celebrate this day and celebrate our lives together. And so spilling something on my dress really is so minor in the grand scheme of things. And
Exactly.
yeah, and if you got it on if it's on there when the pictures are being taken, whoever took the pictures is great at Photoshop, and they're going to fix it. They're going to take that stain out of there, so nobody's going to see it. It just makes life so much easier if you can just kind of gloss over the negatives and not let them pull you down, and say, okay, that happened. Now what? Let's just keep going forward. What's the reason we're here? Why are we doing this? And let's get back to that instead of looking at all the things that didn't go quite the way we planned.
Look at the big picture, rather than microscopic little things.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And maybe the way it ended up working out is the way it was supposed to work out anyway. Maybe my original plan wasn't the best plan. Let's loosen up, lighten up.
Yeah. What if you?
Oh, so in other words, if I was going to change it, I would have to look 22%.
So, you have any parting words of wisdom on?
Well, it does take work, like everything in life. I mean, a lot of the books that I've read, that it does comment that humans in general naturally go to the negative, to the for some reason they look at the negative side, and it does take work to stop that. And I know in my experience, that's the way it was. And I had to, and first of all, you start to recognize what you're doing, because you don't realize it at first. And then once you start recognizing it, then you can start doing something about it.
Right. We are programmed to go to the negative, because if we were always looking at the positive, we wouldn't know when something was askew.
Right. We wouldn't know to run from that lion that's chasing.
So we have that fail-safe system within us. And I mean, children, how do we learn? How do any of us learn, even when we're not children anymore? We learn through our senses. And the only way that information can get into our brain is through one of our 5 senses. See, hear, touch, taste. And so as a child, on the floor, looking at all the pretties, all they're wanting is the pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And they go for it, and they don't know until someone comes over and slaps their hand, and oh, ouch, that wasn't pretty, and it hurt. But see, that child will equally go after a pretty butterfly that won't hurt them, but they also will equally go after a bumblebee.
Yeah.
And so we are programmed to that negative, because if it hurts, turn it loose. It's to go there. Otherwise, we wouldn't find our voice. We wouldn't speak up. But sometimes we have spoken up so much that we just stay on that recording, and everything is negative, 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 always looking for the wrong.
Yeah.
And I know there's someone in my life that I have to really, really work and be prepared to be around because they're always looking for the negative. And I'm thinking, you know what? Just like there's the mystical in everything, just like if we did not understand the concept of up, we wouldn't understand the concept of down. But because we do understand those concepts of up or down, we can begin to see how that we might could bring balance to something. And so if we can see the concept of negative, we also have the capability of seeing the concept of positive. And as we look at the negative that is a possibility and the positive that is a possibility and bring them together, we can see that how they really feed each other to becoming a reality that is doable.
Yeah, because the negative things that happen in our lives, they're just challenges, and there's something for us to learn and something. And so whenever you make it through a negative experience, you feel good about yourself, and you've learned something for the next time.
And you can breathe.
And then breathe.
You can breathe.
But I made it. I did it.
And if I did it that time, now I have a little shadow of what I could do the next time.
Yeah.
Because life is real fair to give us do-overs again and again and again.
It does. It does. And it's not the end of the world just because something just doesn't work out the way you wanted it to. All right, life goes on. Let's deal with it, and let's keep moving forward. Let's not dwell on it. Let's not get back and let that ruin my day. Life is too short to let something like that ruin my day.
Well, our time is running short, and so thank all of you that tuned in today, and thank all of you that are watching us in days previously. Appreciate your being here, and always look up, because you can't look down when you're looking up.
That's right. Thank you. We'll see you next week.